All right, Jesse on Fire, welcome back to the channel. Now we are going to talk about EAGLEFC, Francis Ngannou, UFC, and that's probably it, actually. So actually what I want to talk about is I want to talk about how the UFC does business, this antitrust thing. I learned a bunch of stuff since we've last spoken. Last time I talked to you guys, at least in a recorded video, I was talking about Josh Fabia. If you didn't get to see that, give it a run. You'll like it. You'll like it. He deserved it. He deserved it. If you blackmail people, you're going to end up on my channel, assuming that the person you blackmailed is in the MMA community. So there's that. So yeah, I learned a bunch about like the UFC contracts and Francis' contract specifically, where it sits compared to how UFC used to be. There's a lot to it, actually. You know what? Just bear with me. This is going to be an interesting business video. Now, if you like the content, subscribe and ring the bell. Tell everybody. Now, the way that Eagle falls into this story is as a new organization. I want to talk about like how I thought that show went, etc. Whatever. It sounds very convoluted. I promise that this is going to be a good video either way. So just bear with me. So I was at the grocery store the other day. This is totally irrelevant where I was, but I was at the grocery store the other day and I was listening to something about the UFC antitrust lawsuit, which I have had absolutely no insight into. For whatever reason, it's not something that I paid attention to. Was this like big multi-billion-dollar lawsuit or whatever with all the fighters? I just basically assumed, well, they're not going to win. So, I don't know. Like, I actually don't really know why I didn't pay attention, but I didn't pay attention. And I learned that one of the things that they're after has directly to do with this new Francis situation that I know a lot about, having to do with his 5-year contract, having an end date being 5 years to his contract. We've talked about this, right? You have the champ clause, you have all these extensions that they have in their contracts, but there's this 5-year end date that supersedes all the other things, right? Now, what I didn't realize is that's very new, right? Like his is obviously expiring right now, but new as of like 5 years ago, right? Like these are new things that were in the contracts because the antitrust lawsuit stated that essentially when there was no end date, the extensions, if you sign with the UFC, you're basically signing for life. You can't get out of your contract, because there were all these extensions related to when they can extend you. If you do this, then you get extended a year. If you do that, you get extended for a year. If you're injured, it freezes and your time period starts over. Like literally there was almost no way to get out of your contract I haven't like looked at all of their contracts, so I don't want to make hard and fast statements like that. But if a 5-year end date changes the game completely and all of a sudden people can get out of their contracts if they just fight for 5 straight years, then that sounds like they were basically, how long is a career, man? Not that long. So if 5 years is like some big crazy new end date, then obviously they had them locked up pretty tight before. Okay. Now, why this is notable and why I was thinking about EAGLEFC, I will get to in a second. But now it is notable that Francis is now at the end of his contract. He is going to be a free agent if he decides not to resign. If he ends up at the UFC, it means he signed a new contract. The contract that he is in currently, because he's going to go get knee surgery, it's going to get, all the way to the end of the 5 years. He's done. So he can choose to re-sign with the UFC or not. Francis Ngannou, heavyweight champion. This has never happened before. And now I know why. Aside from the fact that Francis had to take incredible risks to get to where he is now, right? Now, I don't want to be super redundant because I've talked about this a million times on the channel, but for Francis to be in the situation that he's in now, which is as a potential unrestricted free agent, he had to fight knowing, at least I assume that he knew, because Markel's very smart. Francis is a smart guy. I'm just assuming that they know that when they didn't sign a new contract and fought against Stipe, right? You got 2 fights left on the deal. You're like, no, I'm not going to sign a new deal. We're offering you millions of dollars. I'm good. I'm just going to fight. What you're stating is you're stating your intention to leave, okay? I'm going to leave the UFC. Now, what does the UFC do every time that someone is about to leave the UFC, okay? Now, answer, I just said you can never get out of your contract. That's obviously not true. But normally, you couldn't get out of your contract till you're like so old that you're not marketable or valuable anymore. If Tyron Woodley leaves the UFC coming off 4 straight losses and he's 37 years old, how big of a loss to the UFC is that? How much value can be allocated to a competitor, organization? Not very much. It's very rare that someone in the peak of their prime gets there because the UFC will offer him the more money and they'll take it, right? Francis says, no, I'm not taking millions of dollars. I'll take $600,000 to fight Stipe. And then they're like, no, here's another contract with more money. I'm not taking that. I'm going to fight my contract out. I'll fight for $600,000. First of all, it takes a lot of balls to leave that money on the table, you know, because you're betting on yourself. But also, like I was originally saying, if you're smart, you know, if you lose, they're going to fuck you. They're going to fuck you to death, dude. They're going to fuck your corpse after they're done fucking you to death. You're done. They're going to fuck you to death. Because it's business. That's what you do. You set an example of people who do something you don't want them to do. If you don't want other fighters to do the thing that they're doing, then you fucking make an example of them. People have been doing this for time immemorial, man. Okay? If you're in the ancient times and someone, you know, I don't know, does like a fucking mutiny or something. You know, you stick them on a pike in front of the castle. You're like, hey, so here's what happens to people that mutinize. What? So don't do it. And all you'd have to do with Francis is just offer him a bullshit deal and make sure everybody knows it. It's too bad you didn't sign the first deal, huh? Too bad. So, yeah, tremendous risk. But also, again, 5-year end date, okay? Now, the reason that all of this leads into a conversation about EAGLEFC is this, okay? So I was watching EAGLEFC on Friday, and I thought they did great, man. Like, I thought that was like you know, for a production, for an MMA, you know, event that was not UFC, it was awesome. Like, the production value was really good. The fights were good. The commentators, you had Chael, Triple C there, Kamaru, and there's someone else really big that was there. Who am I forgetting? Oh, Khabib, Jesus. And Khabib. And it felt like, I don't know, I had a good time watching it. I thought it was really good. Same time, when it's not the UFC, you have this feeling of like, this is MMA, but it's not UFC, right? Eagle, because Khabib's there, especially because Khabib's there, man. Like, I'm just going to be straight. Like, for me personally, especially because Khabib specifically is there, I was like, this feels different than when I watch other, like, new shows. I think that they're going to do well. But what I was thinking about when I was watching, so I was watching the last fight, right? Like, I was watching the main event with Karatanov and, oh my God. I'm not starting over. I'm telling you right now, I have a mental block. I'm not going to remember his name. The kickboxer, the dude who is a total savage striker who clearly did not train on the ground because Karatanov passed his guard without even trying at all. Like, it was that guy. So I was watching that, and I was just thinking to myself how, like, you know, it's like, it's still, how do I say this? You can't compete with the UFC without the talent of the UFC, right? Like, it's impossible. It's impossible. Like, you can't do it. You could have all the lights in the world. You can have Metallica play at the beginning. You guys know I cannot stand when organizations do big music shows with mixed martial arts. I don't know who told people that mixed martial arts goes along with music or fighting goes with music. I don't understand it. It doesn't go together. It's not, anyway. But you can do whatever you want. Okay, you can do all of the things. Now, obviously, Khabib's not going to do this, but you get you get the hottest ring girls ever. Khabib's not going to do that, as he's made very clear. Who cares about ring girls also? But, like, it doesn't matter what you do. If you don't have the talent, it's not the same. It's just not the same. And you think about that through the lens of, up until very recently, the UFC literally was signing guys for life. Signing guys for life. Like, they were never going to get out of their contracts. Like, the contracts were built in a way where if someone really challenged them, they might have even had a problem with whether they could do the contracts the way that they did them. I don't know that for sure. But they added in the 5-year end date for a reason that certainly didn't benefit the UFC. So I would imagine that someone's legal opinion was like, you're not going to be able to defend this dude. Or maybe even a court told them they had to. Either way, how are you going to build a rival organization if it's nearly impossible for fighters to get out of their contract to the UFC and all the talent's over there? You have to build it yourself. It costs so much money to build hype and talent around a fighter who's not in the primary organization. You know, like, if they're not in the premier organization, think about how hard that is. And Francis becoming that's why Francis becoming a free agent is such an enormous thing, dude. Like, it's such an enormous thing. Now, one thing I will say is notable is I saw I saw Ali Abdelaziz giving an interview with Brett Okamoto, and he was talking about Francis, and he was talking about Francis's deal, and he was talking about that he had spoken to the UFC and that they were willing to make concessions related to Francis's new deal, which I'm sure means boxing, obviously, right? I mean, of course it means boxing, right? Like Francis wants to box. So a concession we don't normally make, I would imagine, is boxing, right? But Ali's not trying to sign Francis, is what I'm saying. I just thought that was notable. That they're not trying to make a play at Francis. You know what I mean? Who knows if they had it's going to cost a lot of fucking money to get Francis. That's the other thing. You'd have to go to the investors. You're like, look, I think we can make this make sense. They're all, the UFC can't make it make sense. Nope, but I think we can. They're all, how much does he want? $12 million a fight. They're like, Jesus, $12 million a fight? Yep. They're all, how are we going to make that back? You're like, we're going to do it. Because that's the thing is you're going to, if you're going to compete with the UFC, you're going to have to just, and I use that as an example to demonstrate that is literally the decision that you have. If you're trying to build an organization and make it a rival to the UFC, at some point, you're going to have to make that decision. You're going to have to vomit money at a thing that is for sure not going to be a good investment short term. You're going to have to, the war chest that it would take to actually build a rival organization to the UFC. Think about it through that perspective, okay? Think about Ali Abdelaziz running EAGLEFC. He's not even entertaining it because that is a completely different endeavor than the microphone's just going to jump around when I'm trying to talk. What are you doing, dude? You know I'm in the middle of a video? Jesus. But that's a totally different thing. Building, you start small and you scale based on your success, which is the, prudent way that you build a business. You can't do that if you're going to try to compete with the UFC. And again, I don't know. I don't even know why I find that notable. I just think that but it's notable that Eagle's not trying to compete with the UFC, and then also notable when you really think it through as a business owner, how much money it would take to build an organization that would compete with the UFC. Actually really think it through. When just one guy who happens to be a free agent at a time when he's still marketable, think about how are you going to make that up, dude? Because if you don't want to, if he's not going to sign with UFC, you have to offer him more money than the UFC would offer him. There is absolutely no possible way you can make financial sense out of that. If you don't have pay-per-view deals in place and you're not going to have supporting, undercard, that, it's another thing. So when people are like, Francis only sold 200,000 pay-per-views. You're like, yeah, so? And they're like, well, he's asking for all this money. You're all, did you see his undercard? They spent a total of $1.6 million on the entire card. And Francis got 600,000 of it. I know that that's not accurate. Okay, actually, you know what? I can't even believe that I'm saying that out loud. Okay, I know that's not accurate. 1.6 on disclosed pay, it's not even close to what they actually pay. They pay much more than that. But nonetheless, that was still an incredibly light card. On purpose. Why would they promote Francis right before he's about to go become a potential competition to them? But Francis only sold 200,000. Okay, well, there's no one else on the card except for, Moreno and Figueiredo. But and they're 125 pounds. I don't know. How much do you think it does if you throw Gaethje and Chandler on there? Seriously. If you throw Gaethje and Chandler on there, it doubles how many fucking pay-per-views they sell. If you throw Nick Diaz on there or something. Nate Diaz, give it a 5X. They didn't give it any, they gave it no support. So, if you're going to build a rival organization, think about the amount of money you're going to have to spend to try to compete with the UFC. It's astronomical. You're going to lose money for so long. And I just think that's notable, again, because if I talk about it the direction of, think about what Dana did, then people are like, oh, you bootlicking Dana, dude. I'm like, what? No, I'm a businessman. Okay, I like thinking about the business. So this is another way for me to explain it. Think about what EAGLEFC would have to do to compete with the UFC. Think about how much money they'd have to spend, how much money they would have to lose to be able to draw enough attention over there to where they could consistently bring in more money than they spend while paying people millions of dollars. And that's what UFC does every single time. So it's notable. Anyway, that's what I've got. I love you guys, and thanks for the ongoing support.